what makes you different than the situation that I'm doing right now?
The other people that you have interviewed have been people who have been living with chronic fatigue as part of their lives. I have been mother of somebody who has been living with chronic fatigue for a good part of her life, for over half her life.
When did you first find this appear in your life?
When my daughter Emily was around 13, the two of us actually got a flu, and I got better from it, and Emily never recovered from the flu. She continued to have flu-like symptoms.
Describe.
She just never seemed to get over the flu. She just could not get out of bed, and she, as a young woman, had been very, very active, and she just couldn't get better. She stayed in bed, did not get up. She became very depressed, became very ill.
And what would be a typical day? It's 9 o'clock in the morning, 8, 7 o'clock in the morning, everybody's getting up. What would the typical day be like?
She would stay in bed and refuse to get up, could not eat, would not eat, and stayed in bed. It was very confusing, it was very upsetting, very confusing, because it was a marked difference from a very vibrant person that she was and had been. And so it was her schooling. She would not go to school, could not go to school. Schooling had stopped. All her activities, all her friendships had stopped. And very concerned about depression, no interest in any activities, no interest in school, very concerned about what her mental state was and what her physical state was. Also tried to get trying to get answers to what might possibly be the cause of where she was and what was causing this.
And I guess you went to a doctor, and what happened there?
We couldn't find out what was wrong, just didn't know that it, possibly she had flu, possibly she had mono. Didn't know what it was, and that it might get better.
How old is she now?
She's 31.
31, so that was 20 years ago. How have times changed? It's 20 years ago. Is it the attitude changed? Is people looking at it more seriously now, or is it still the same?
I think certainly we were fortunate in that there were people who were understanding and were willing to work with her. She was very fortunate to get into a program where there were doctors who were familiar and understood chronic fatigue and looked at it as an illness, and a GP who believed that chronic fatigue existed, and also a psychiatrist who was looking at chronic fatigue as an illness, and so who would work with her, both her GP and a psychiatrist. So we were extremely fortunate. I believe that that in the medical profession that there is a little more openness today, but I think people are still having difficulties in having this recognized. I don't know how much further that people have been able to come, but I think as far as being recognized as an illness which would have support for the family in a financial way, for to enable the person to receive the resources that they need, I think it would be. I don't think that it has come far enough.
What about other parents that haven't experienced this yet? Well, obviously it's going to happen again somewhere. Do you have a message for other parents to how what they should look out for?
What should they look out for? I think that you need to advocate for your own child. I think you need to know your own child. You need to know, and you need to continue to seek support for yourself and for your child. It's going to take resources. You need to have resources to continue the education for your own child, because if your child has if your child gets chronic fatigue when they are young, they will need to continue their education. They have to have supports for that education. You have to have continuing financial resources, whether it's for their own education at the primary, at the secondary school education level, and then for that person when they go to ongoing sort of the at a higher education level, whether it's university or college. They're not necessarily able to, can't expect them to be able to work outside of the, take on the jobs that that your other children might. They can't take on part-time jobs. They don't have that same ability. You might parent differently. You definitely need the support and understanding. You're going to have to sort of have support and understanding of families and friends, both for yourself and for your child. And definitely you're going to need the medical support, and you may have to change and continue to seek that support in many different ways, because the first person that you go to may not necessarily recognize what your child has.
What about teachers? Teachers are going to come across this and maybe not understand it. They'll be so busy doing their other things that they don't even pay attention to it.
You may be brushed off. Your child may be brushed off as slacking off. So if that happens, again, you need to advocate for your child. You need to advocate that this is an illness that they have. You need to advocate. You have to know your own child. You have to know what is happening to your child.